I have reached the total length that I needed so far for my project. I measuring from the neckline over here to the bottom. Okay, I have a total of 35 centimeters. Now what we want to do is we are going to crochet the rib stitch in the bottom and see how we have this seam from the slip stitches. This is why we turn our work in every row so the seam comes out straight. Now and I haven't found a way yet so we can avoid this view on the back of our projects when you join. If you don't like to have this throughout your project, okay, up at this point, after we join for the sleeves, you can go ahead, cut the yarn and join it on the side so the seam is on the side of the project. Depends on what you like. Okay, so now we're going to work for the rib stitch, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to turn my work. Okay, I'm going to keep working in the same direction. I'm not going to turn the work in the other direction. So I'm going to keep working in the same direction as I was working my last row of single crochet. And I'm going to start by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. And what I've mentioned in other videos is that when we keep crocheting in the same direction, the loop that belongs to each stitch is on the top right. When you turn the work, it immediately goes to the left. But when you're in the same direction, it's on the top right. So this is my first half double crochet. So this is the first stitch in which I'm going to crochet into. So I have worked my 3 chains and I'm going to work double crochet for the first row of rib stitch. And work 1 double crochet. Next stitch, 1 double crochet. Next stitch, 1 double crochet. Next stitch, 1 double crochet. So keep working 1 double crochet all around up until you reach your last stitch of the row. Right in here you're going to work your last double crochet. This is the last half double crochet, so the top right over here is going to be worked. We're going to work, our last stitch. I've completed crocheting 1 double crochet all around. As I mentioned before I turned my video off, my last stitch was this one, so this is the last loop in which I crocheted into. Do not crochet in this loop over here because this is our slip stitch. Now counting from the bottom going to the top, work a slip stitch in the 3rd chain counting from the bottom to the top. Okay, now we're going to start row number 2 for the rib stitch. So I'm going to chain 2 instead of 3 because when I work front post and back post, the total height of the double crochet is equal to that one of the half double crochet. And this is why I start with 2 chains instead of 3. So my first stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. So put your hook around your first stitch, put your hook from the front to the back on the right side, to the front again on the left side. You're pulling outwards your stitch, grab the yarn, pull it under the stitch and work a double crochet. Yarn over once. Our next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side, to the back again on the left side. Okay, we're pulling backwards, grab the yarn, pull it under the stitch and work a double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. So put your hook from the front to the back on the right side, to the front again on the left side and work a double crochet. Yarn over once. Our next stitch is going to be a back post. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side, to the back again on the left side and work a back post double crochet. So keep repeating this pattern. Work 1 front post double crochet, 1 back post double crochet. Okay, so keep repeating 1 front post, 1 back post all around. Once I reach my last stitch, which is either going to be a front post or a back post depending on the number of stitches that you have, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to finish row number 2 for the rib stitch and how to start row number 3. I have completed crocheting all around. My last stitch is a back post double crochet. Now if in your project your last stitch is a front post double crochet, this doesn't mean that you have made a mistake. It's because we have a difference in our stitches. Okay, Now after the last stitch, counting from the bottom to the top, put your hook in the second chain and work your slip stitch. Chain 2 to start the third row, which is the last one that we're going to see on video. We're going to crochet the rest of the rib stitch off camera. Okay, so I need to keep the same direction of my stitches. What this means is that if I had a front post double crochet in the beginning, I'm going to work a front post double crochet in this row as well. So again, on your first stitch, put your hook from the front to the back on the right side, to the front again on the left side, and work a double crochet. My next stitch is a back post, but because after the second row, my back posts aren't that visible, just in case I don't get confused, just pull up the stitch with your fingers so you can see where to wrap your hook around to. So from the back to the front on the right side, to the back again on the left side, and work your back post double crochet. So keep repeating this pattern. The next stitch is a front post double crochet. Next stitch is a back post double crochet, and keep crocheting all around up until I reach my last stitch over here, which is going to be a back post. Once I reach my last stitch, I'm going to turn my video back on to explain how to continue with the rib stitch off camera. I have completed crocheting my third row. Now again, counting from the bottom to the top, put your hook in that second chain and slip stitch and chain 2. Now let's see how our work looks like at this point. Okay, see how it has started to shrink a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and work 1 or 2 extra rows off camera. Just to give a nice belt, you know, on our dress for the costume. And then I'm going to turn my video back on and we're going to start crocheting around the stitches regularly with adding some increases. And it's going to give a very nice look on the skirt part of our project. So go ahead and keep crocheting off camera. Once I turn my video back on, I'm going to mention the total number of rows that I have worked for the rib stitch, and then we're going to see how to continue. Okay, now I've completed crocheting my rib stitch, okay, and I have worked a total of 4 rows. The first one is the one that we started crocheting the double crochet, 2, 3, and 4. So a total of 4 rows to separate the top part from the skirt. And now we're going to start crocheting the skirt for our dress. Okay, so chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And from here on, every row is going to start 3 chains because we're crocheting regular double crochet. And what we're going to do, and this applies to all sizes, we're going to work an increase in every second stitch. So in every second stitch, we're going to be working 2 double crochet in the same stitch. And I'm not going to turn my work to work on the opposite direction because well, there's not any particular rule that I'm doing this. I just want the first row of double crochet to be on the good side of my work. And because I am not turning my work, the loop that belongs to every stitch is on its top right. Okay, so I've worked my 3 chains, which are my first double crochet, yarn over once. Put your hook in the same stitch as the slip stitch and work 1 more double crochet. So this is my first increase. I worked 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Now the next stitch is this one over here. So on the top right, it's the loop that it belongs to it. And work 1 double crochet. Next stitch, 2 double crochet. 1, same stitch, 2. Next stitch, work 1 double crochet. Next stitch, work 2 double crochet in the same stitch. 1 and 2, and keep repeating the pattern all around. Once you reach your last stitch over here, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed my row, and this is how my project looks like at this point. See how it has started to get wavy? This is how your project is supposed to look like. Now close the row by working a slip stitch and a 3rd chain, counting from the bottom to the top. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and from here on, in every new row that we're going to be starting, we're going to be turning our work. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the inside. And the reason that we turn our work in every row is to have a straight seam on our project. If you keep crocheting in the same direction, you'll have a diagonal seam and it's not going to look nice on your project. Okay, so starting from the first stitch, which isn't this one, this is my slip stitch, this is the first stitch, work 1 double crochet in every stitch. Okay, so keep working 1 double crochet all around. Now I'm going to work those 4 rows off camera. So in the first row we worked an increase in every second stitch. Now I'm working a total of 4 rows with 1 double crochet in every stitch. Once I finish these 4 rows, I'm going to turn my video back on. Just make sure you always work a slip stitch in the 3rd chain, counting from the bottom to the top, and always turn your work once you finish the row. So once I finish this row, I'm going to turn my work on the outside to start the new row. Then on the inside, outside, and so on. So once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed crocheting my 4 rows with 1 stitch in every stitch all around, and this is what we have as a result. This is how your skirt is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be wavy. Okay, now we're going to start the next row, and as I mentioned before I turned my video off, I have worked 4 rows, 1 2 3 4. Okay, now we're going to start our new row by chaining 3. And I'm going to turn my work, and this is the last row that we're going to see on camera, and then I'm going to finish my skirt off camera. So after my 3 chains, I turn my work, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work 1 more double crochet in the same exact stitch as I worked my slip stitch. So I just worked the first increase for the row, 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Now in this row we're going to be working an increase in every 3rd stitch. Okay, so in the first stitch I'm going to work 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet in the 2nd stitch, and in the 3rd stitch I'm going to work my increase, 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Keep repeating the pattern all around. 1 double crochet in the first stitch, 1 in the 2nd stitch, increase in the 3rd one, 2 double crochet in the same stitch, 1, same stitch, 2. Okay, so keep repeating the pattern all around. Once you've crocheted in your last stitch, slip stitch and turn your work to work in the other direction. From here on, this is the last row of increases that I'm going to work, and from here on I'm going to work only 1 double crochet in every stitch from there on. Okay, so once I finish this row of increases in which I'm crocheting an increase in every 3rd stitch, from the row after this one till the end, I'm going to be crocheting only 1 stitch in every stitch, no more increases. And for the size that I'm crocheting, I need the total length of the skirt to be 45 centimeters. Okay, so we have, and that's about, the skirt reaches up to the knee. So far I have crocheted a total of 6 centimeters, so I need 39 more centimeters to complete my skirt. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I'm going to start crocheting for the sleeves. Now I'm crocheting for a 10-year-old, and after the shoulder, from here to the end, my sleeve needs to be a total of 37 centimeters from here to the end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop crocheting at 32 centimeters, and I'm going to turn my video back on to work a total of 5 centimeters for the rib stitch, because this is 5 centimeters over here. I like the rib stitch on the cuffs on the sleeves to be equal to the ones that I worked in the bottom of my sweater. Now if you prefer it differently, you can go ahead and crochet in the way that you prefer and you like better. So I'm going to start crocheting for a total of 32 centimeters. Okay, now we're going to attach the yarn right here where we under in the armpit, sorry, down here in the center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to be closing every row with a slip stitch. I'm going to crochet, open the sleeve, and I'm going to join in the end by working slip stitches. Okay, so I am not going to join right here where the center is. I'm going to join on the left side, and this is you're going to apply to all sizes. You're going to attach on the left side, work 1/2 double crochet all around, and you're going to come back here and finish on the right side of the center, starting on the left side and finishing on the right side. Okay, so let's attach our yarn. So put your hook right here in this stitch over here. Take the yarn, pull it through the stitch, and chain 2. 1, 2. Now only for this first row, those 2 chains count as my first 1/2 double crochet. Now starting from the next stitch, work 1/2 double crochet all around. Okay, next stitch 1/2 double crochet. Next stitch 1/2 double crochet. So keep working 1 stitch all around again up until you reach right over here. I have completed crocheting my first row with 1/2 double crochet all around. Now we're gonna start the second row by chaining 2 and turning our work, okay, to work on the inside of the stitches. Now if you're crocheting for an adult size, now for all the children's sizes, I never work decreases on the sleeves. I go ahead and work it straight, and that's because my daughter doesn't really like to have very tight sleeves on her shirts, so I just go ahead and work it straight down. If you're working for adult size, because the arm opening is going to be pretty big than what you want it to be, you do want to work decreases throughout the whole sleeve. And the way that you're going to work your decreases are as follows. You're going to chain 2, and instead of working in the first stitch, you're going to go and work 1/2 double crochet in the second stitch. And see how it looks that it has gone inside my sleeve over here. It's the same thing as working the first 2 1/2 double crochet together, but when I am in the beginning of the row, I don't want to put my hook in both stitches because I'm going to create like steps going through for my decreases. So every time when you work a decrease in the beginning of the row with the 1/2 double crochet, chain 2, skip the first stitch and work a 1/2 double crochet in the second stitch. And now those 2 stitches count as 1. This 1/2 double crochet is your first stitch. Okay, now for the children's size, I have worked my 2 chains, and I'm always going to start working from the first stitch. Now those 2 chains never count as a 1/2 double crochet from here on. Okay, next stitch, 1/2 double crochet, next stitch, 1/2 double crochet, next stitch, 1/2 double crochet, and keep working 1/2 double crochet all around, where the last 2 stitches are going to be as follows. Okay, the second before last stitch is going to be this 1/2 double crochet over here, and the last stitch only for this row is going to be the second chain counting from the bottom to the top over here, because I mentioned in the beginning of the previous row that those 2 chains counted as a 1/2 double crochet, and that's because I had attached my yarn. Okay, so these 2 are going to be your last 2 stitches. When I finish the row, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed crocheting 1/2 double crochet all around. Now if you're crocheting for the adult size sleeve, I'm frogging the last 2 stitches. What you always want to do in the end of the row when you're working the row of decrease, you're going to put your hook in the second before last stitch, and you're going to take the yarn and pull it through the stitch, okay? And instead of closing for the 1/2 double crochet, what you're going to do is yarn over once and put your hook in the last stitch of the row as well. And you have a total of 5 loops in your hook, which you're going to close together and now the last 2 stitches count as 1. Now for the adult size sleeves, you do want to work a row of decrease in every 4th row. So let's say, for example, we had 50 stitches in the beginning of the row, in the first row that we started. Now, because I worked together the first 2 and the last 2 stitches, I'm left with only 48 stitches, for example. Of course, you're going to have more stitches because you're crocheting for adult size, but I'm just trying to explain how your stitches are going to decrease throughout the rows. After this row, you're going to work 3 rows with 1 stitch in every stitch, so 48 stitches in total in every row. In the 4th row again, you're going to work your decrease. The first 2 stitches worked in the same exact way that we did in the beginning of this row, and the last 2 stitches worked in the same exact way we did in the end of this row. So from the 48 stitches, you're going to be left with 46. Again, 3 rows with 46 stitches after that. In the 4th row again, you're going to work your decrease in the beginning and in the end of the sleeve. And by doing it this way, you're going to have your decreases up until the end of the sleeve, and then you're going to work your rib stitch in the end. Okay, and the reason that we're doing this is because you're going to have a nice symmetrical closing on your sleeve, because if you go ahead and work all the decreases in the first rows, you're going to have such a bad result, because you're going to have a sudden decrease and a sudden shrinkage on your sleeve on the top of your shoulder, and then from the elbow going down, you're going to have the sleeve straight open because you're not going to have any more decreases to work. So this is why we work a decrease in every 4th row in the same exact way as I did the decreases over here. So I'm going to continue with my children's size sleeve. So I'm going to work again my last 2 stitches, and from here on up until I reach my 32 centimeters, I'm going to work off camera. So chain 2, turn the work to keep crocheting on the other direction. So always start crocheting from the first half double crochet, 1 stitch in every stitch. Okay, and the last stitch of the row is always going to be the last half double crochet right in here. Okay, we do not want to crochet in the chain 2, because from here on this is only to help us to start our new rows. So always your last stitch is going to be this last half double crochet over here, and of course please count your stitches so you have the same amount of stitches in every row. So once I reach my 32 centimeters, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed crocheting the total length for the sleeve that I wanted so far, and from here to the end is 32 centimeters, and I've crocheted a total of 38 rows of half double crochet. From here, from where I joined the yarn till the end, I have 38 rows. Now what I'm going to do is I want to join, so I have worked a chain so my project doesn't frog, and I'm going to grab the yarn along with the sleeve, and I'm going to turn the inside out. And the reason that I take the yarn with me is because I want it to go through to the other side. Okay, so turn your work on the inside out, and we're going to work slip stitches from the bottom going to the top to close the sleeve. So I'm going to start slip stitching going upwards. Okay, so let me zoom in so you can see better the steps that I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to leave the one chain that I worked after the last half double crochet, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my hook in the first half double crochet of the front piece and the first half double crochet of the back piece. So I'm going to slip stitch both sides together to close up the sleeve. Okay, and work your slip stitch. Now what I want to do is I want to be grabbing the first stitch on both sides of every row. So the first stitch of every row in both sides. So I'm going now in the half double crochet in the second row on the front piece and on the back piece as well, and I'm going to close by working a slip stitch. And next, third row, slip stitch to join, next row, slip stitch to join, next row, grab the stitches of both sides, slip stitch to join. Okay, so keep working one slip stitch, grabbing both sides together to close your sleeve, and keep working going upwards. And once you have reached up here in the end, okay, where you have closed the last stitches, the last stitch, the last space where you're going to put your hook into is right here in the big hole. Now this big hole is the increases that we were working for the sleeve to open up. So in this big hole is the last stitch where you're going to put your hook to work your last slip stitch. In this way we're not going to have a hole on our sweater under our arm. Okay, so keep working slip stitches going upwards. Once I finish closing my sleeve, I'm going to turn my video back on. I've completed working my slip stitches going from the bottom to the top. My last stitch was in the big hole right over here. So after your last slip stitch, chain one, cut the yarn and fasten off. Okay, now we're going to work the rib stitch on the sleeve. I have turned my sweater on the good side, and this is how my sleeve looks like. See how the joining looks? We have the seam in the bottom of the sleeve. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to join yarn to work the rib stitch down here in the cuff. Okay, so let me zoom in so you can see easier the steps that I'm working. So go ahead and join your yarn right here in the center where you joined. Okay, so on the seam, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And what we're going to do now, starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet all around. Okay, so keep working 1 double crochet in every stitch all around. Okay, all around the sleeve. Once you reach the end right here in the last half double crochet, I'm going to work my last stitch. I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed crocheting 1 double crochet all around. Okay, now in order to close the row, counting from the bottom to the top, put your hook in the third chain and work a slip stitch to join. Now from here on, I'm going to go off camera because the steps for the rib stitch, 1 front post, 1 back post, are the same exact steps that we did in the bottom of our sweater for the rib stitch and on the neckline as well. So I'm always going to be starting my new row with 2 chains and always work a front post double crochet in the first stitch, 1 back post double crochet, next stitch a front post double crochet, back post double crochet in the next stitch, and so on. And every time when you finish the row, which this stitch is going to be either a front post or a back post, you're going to be closing the row by working a slip stitch in the second chain, counting from the bottom to the top. Okay, now depending on the size that you're making and your preferences as well, you can make the rib stitch to be a pretty long one, or you can make it to be a shorter one. It depends on what you prefer better. Okay, and also depending on what you prefer, but also make sure that the total length of your sleeve matches with the length that I mentioned in the charts. Okay, now we have started the first row together and the second row as well. Now for the rib stitch, I want to have a total of 7 rows. So I have 1, 2 rows, and I'm going to need to work 5 more rows off camera. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed crocheting my rib stitch for my sleeve, and look how nice it has come. And by working the rib stitch, the sleeve down here on the cuff it shrinks by itself. Look what a nice result it gives. Every new row for the rib stitch that I start, the sleeve just keeps shrinking a little more, and this is how it looks 7 rows later. Okay, so after your last slip stitch, chain 1, cut the yarn and fasten off. Now I'm going to go off camera and work the second sleeve in the same exact way, same rows for the rib stitch. Now that we have completed crocheting the sleeves and the skirt for a dress, we're going to work the hood. And what I want to do for the hood is I want to have my project on the good side, on the front side, not on the back where I have the seam for the slip stitches. Okay, I want it to be on the front, and I'm going to attach my yarn in the stitch that's right before the increase. I'm going to work 1 double crochet all around and come back here in the front where I'm going to finish in the stitch after the increase right over here, and the rest of the stitches in the front are going to stay blank. Okay, so let's start. Okay, and we want to be crocheting on the leftover loops from our beginning chain, because up here it's the beginning chain and this is the first row for our dress. Okay, so put your hook in the stitch that's right before the increase, take the yarn, pull it through the stitch and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now those 3 chains are my first double crochet. Yarn over once, put your hook in the next stitch, which is the increase, and work only 1 double crochet. And keep working 1 double crochet in every stitch. If you're afraid that you're going to miss the loops in which you have to put your hook into, just align with the half double crochet, and right beneath it is the loop, and work your double crochet. Next stitch, go ahead and align the half double crochet, right beneath it is your loop. Okay, so keep working 1 double crochet in every stitch. Okay, so once I have worked 1 double crochet in every stitch all around, okay, you're going to turn in the back. This is where we started, and I'm going to keep crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch, 1 stitch on the increase, 1 stitch on the increase over here as well. This is my back side now. Okay, 1 double crochet right here on the shoulder, and I'm going to come back here in the front, and I'm going to finish on the stitch right after the increase. Once I reach at this point, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed crocheting the first row of my hood, and this is how it looks like. I started over here, crocheted all around, and I came back in front over here. Now we're going to start the second row, which is going to be the last row that we're going to see on camera for the hood, because all the rows are going to start and finish in the same exact way that we're going to do now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my new row with 3 chains. 1, 2, 3, and those 3 chains count as my first double crochet. Turn your work, and now we're going to work on the inside of the stitches that we just did, okay, over here. So starting from the second stitch, because the 3 chains count as my first double crochet, so starting from the second stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet across. 3, 4, and 5, and keep crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch. Once I reach the second before the last stitch, which is this double crochet over here, I'm going to turn my video back on to work the last double crochet together, which is the 3rd chain counting from the bottom to the top, with which I started my first row with. I'm almost done crocheting my row. I'm left with my last stitch, which is the 3 chains, counting from the bottom to the top. Put your hook in that third loop, in that third chain, and work a double crochet. Now again, we're going to start the new row with 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. Okay, and again, starting from the second stitch, work 1 double crochet across. And of course, in every row, you're going to have the same number of stitches. Now, I'm going to continue off camera, and you want to crochet up until the total height of the hood is the one you need for each size that you're crocheting. I have the charts in the beginning of the first video with all the measurements and the total height that you need for each size. Once I finish crocheting my hood, I'm going to turn my video back on, and I'm going to mention how many rows I have worked in total and how many centimeters is the total height of my hood. I have completed crocheting my hood, and this is what I have as a result. From the bottom going to the top, I have crocheted a total of 28 rows of double crochet in order to have my 30 centimeters. Now what we're going to do is we're going to join, and you want to either turn your work on the inside out, or you can fold your hood on the wrong side. Okay, don't fold your hood this way in order to join. Fold it in the other side, okay? Or if it's easier for you, turn the inside out. So what we're going to do, after the last double crochet, you want to work 1 chain, okay? And I'm going to start joining from the one side to the other by working slip stitches. Just let me zoom in so it's easier for you to see the steps that I'm doing. Okay. So take your first stitch, which is the chain 3, the first stitch in the front, and the first stitch in the back, and join by working a slip stitch. Okay, let me do that one more time. So I'm grabbing the first stitch on both sides and slip stitch. Okay, now second stitch in the front, second stitch in the back, and slip stitch. Third stitch in the front, third in the back, and slip stitch. Fourth stitch in the front, fourth in the back, and slip stitch. And this is what we have as a result so far. Now keep working slip stitches up until you reach down here, where you're going to work your last slip stitch in here, closing the corner. I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed joining by working a slip stitch in every stitch, and this is what I have as a result. See, we have a seam over here. So after your last slip stitch, chain 1, cut the yarn and fasten off. And now go ahead and turn your hood on the good side again. Okay, and this is what we have as a result. Right over here. Now, because the total width of the hood, and this is going to occur to almost all sizes, it's not as wide as I need. What we're going to do is we're going to join yarn down here, and we're going to crochet around the hood a few rows of the rib stitch, not only to give a nice edging on the hood, but also to add a little for width, okay? To add a little more width on the hood. So let's see how to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to join yarn down here and start crocheting around the hood, okay? So I'm going to bring my project to the side. Sorry, but it's kind of hard because it's so big now with the skirt and everything. Okay, so bring the project on the side, and let me zoom in so you can see easier the steps that I'm working. So we're going to take the yarn, and we're going to join down here, on the hood, and this right here is where I joined to work the first stitch to start working the rows for my hood. So in the same chain I'm going to attach the yarn, and I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, which counts as a double crochet. Now, as I have mentioned on other videos as well, when we crochet horizontally on top of the double crochet, because the double crochet is being completed in 2 steps. The first one is when you crochet the first 2 loops, and the second step is when you crochet on the last 2 loops. When we crochet horizontally on the stitch, we need to crochet 2 stitches on top of each double crochet to cover the distance correctly. So when I have the chain 3, which is a double crochet, put your hook on the first chain and work your first double crochet, and then on the second chain right next to it and work 1 double crochet as well. So these are the first 2 stitches that I need on top of my first double crochet. Skip the third chain, which is this one, which I've crocheted my double crochet into, so I'm not crocheting that stitch. The next stitch is the double crochet right over here. I'm going to put my hook in the bottom of the stitch. This is when you grab the yarn and you pull through the first 2 loops, and up here is when you pull through the last 2 loops. So put your hook down here in the bottom of the double crochet and work the first stitch. And then put your hook right here in the hole, which is the top part of the double crochet, and work your second stitch. Then continue. This is my 3 chains. Down here is the first chain, so work your first double crochet. And right next to it, work your second chain, your second double crochet in the second chain. Okay, now right here, this is my double crochet. Put your hook in the bottom of the stitch and work 1 double crochet, and then on the top of the stitch. Okay, work your double crochet, and then on the top of the stitch right over here. Then again we have our 3 chains. Put your hook in the first chain and work 1 double crochet. Then put your hook in the second chain right next to it, right over here, and work your second stitch. Now keep going. My next stitch is my double crochet, so put your hook in the bottom of the stitch and work 1 double crochet, and then on the top of the stitch and work again 1 double crochet. So keep working in the same exact way up until you reach the joining of the hood, the center over here. Once I reach that point, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to crochet going downwards. So always remember, so here we have the 3 chains. This is the first chain, the second chain. In the third chain is where I have crocheted the last stitch, the double crochet. So once you have crocheted in the first and second chain, go right ahead on the stitch and work your first double crochet on the bottom of the stitch, and then right in the hole over here. Once I reach the center, the joining, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed crocheting going upwards, so this is where I joined my yarn, and I crocheted 2 double crochet on the first stitch of every row. And now I have reached the center right here where I joined by working a slip stitch. Okay, this is a joining. So right in the center where I worked the slip stitches to join, right in here in the seam, I'm going to work 1 double crochet right there in the center. Oops. Okay, and now we're going to start working 1 double crochet in every stitch going downwards, and my last stitch is going to be down here where I finished crocheting in this chain the last stitch of the first row when we started the hood. Okay, now the reason that I'm doing this on camera is because the stitches when you start crocheting to go downwards, they are on the opposite as they were as when we were going upwards. So what you're going to meet first is the second chain of the 3, then the first chain. When we were going upwards, first we saw the first chain and then the second one and then the third and so on. So when you go downwards, first you have the second chain, then the first, then you have the top of the double crochet and then the bottom of the double crochet, where when we were going upwards, first we were crocheting in the bottom of the stitch and then in the top. So the steps are on the opposite now, since we're going downwards. Okay, so put your hook in the second chain and work 1 double crochet. Then on the first chain, which is right next to it, and work 1 double crochet. Now put your hook on the top of the stitch and work 1 double crochet, and then in the bottom of the stitch and work 1 double crochet. Then again on the second chain. Now this right here is the third chain where the stitch is being crocheted, the last double crochet of every row. So I don't want to put my hook in here, but right in the next chain, which is the second one, and work a double crochet. Then in the first chain and work 1 double crochet. Then on the top of the stitch, then put your hook in the bottom of the stitch and work 1 double crochet, and then again in the second chain. Then in the first chain that's right next to it, then on the top of the double crochet, and then in the bottom of the double crochet. Okay, so keep working in the same exact way up until you reach down here, right in here where we worked in this chain, the last double crochet of the first row of the hood. Okay, right here. I have completed crocheting all around. Okay, so I started right here, I went upwards in the center here, and then I started going downwards, and the last stitch in which I crocheted was down here in this chain where I worked the last double crochet of the first row that I worked for the hood. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn the work to start working on the inside, 1 stitch in every stitch, and I'm going to work the rib stitch, 1 front post and 1 back post. Okay, so let me zoom in, and sorry for taking you back and forth, but it's the only way to show you where I'm crocheting and what I'm doing. So chain 2, 1, 2, and turn your work. The reason that I chain 2 is because my first stitch is going to be a half double crochet. So right here in the first stitch, work 1 half double crochet. So the first and the last stitch of the row are going to be 1 half double crochet. Now the next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet, and I'm not going to go fast because we have already seen how to work front posts and back posts. The next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. The next stitch is a back post double crochet. Okay, so keep working 1 front post, 1 back post up until you finish crocheting the whole row all around the hood, and you come back down here on the other side where the last stitch of the row, which is a chain 3, counting from the bottom to the top, put your hook in that third chain and work the half double crochet in the end of the row. Once I finish the second row of the rib stitch for the hood, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed working from the one side going upwards and then downwards with the rib stitch, one front post, one back post. Now we're going to chain 2, we're going to turn our work, and working on the outside we're going to work again a front post and a back post going down to the other side over here. So I'm going to chain 2. Oh, what I want to mention, I forgot, is that my second before the last stitch was a front post, and this is my last stitch of the row, which is the half double crochet that I worked in the third chain, counting from the bottom to the top. Okay, so again I am going to chain 2, turn the work to work on the outside now. Let me zoom in so you're able to see my steps better. Okay, so again, put your hook in the first stitch in the half double crochet and work one half double crochet. Now, in the previous row that we completed, the second before last stitch was a front post. By turning our work though, the stitches get, they become on their opposite direction. What this means is that since the second before last was a front post on this side, once I turned the work, it became a back post. So I want to keep the same direction of the stitches. And since the back post isn't that visible, just pull it up with your fingers and work, pull backwards the stitch and work a back post double crochet. The next stitch is a front post and it's pretty visible. We can see that this is a front post double crochet. Again, the next stitch is a back post double crochet. Pull up the stitch so it's more visible and work a back post double crochet. Next stitch is a front post double crochet. So keep working one front post, one back post all around. Once you reach the end over here, okay, in my hood, the second before last stitch is a back post again, and the last stitch in which I'm going to crochet into is the half double crochet, in which I'm going to work again one half double crochet in the last stitch. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed crocheting my hood so far, and this is what we have as a result. Now, I'm done with crocheting the rib stitch on the hood. We have worked a total of 3 rows, but I will know that it's correct when my daughter wears it and I can see it on her head how it fits. If I think that I need to crochet more rows in order for the hood to fit correctly on her head, I will go and do that off camera later on. If you need to work extra rows as well to give an extra width on your hood, just continue working rows of the rib stitch over here, okay, from the one side to the other and then on the other side to the other as well, if you need to add extra width on your hood. Okay, the pattern is going to be exactly the same. The steps, always start crocheting a half double crochet in the first stitch, then front post, back post, front post, back post, up until the end where you're going to work a half double crochet in the last stitch right in here. So it's not wrong if you're going to add more rows. You can add 2 or 3 extra rows depending on how wide you want your hood to be. Okay, so now that we have finished crocheting the hood, the skirt, we have crocheted the sleeves, it's time to crochet the characteristics of the unicorn. We're going to start with the pleats that we're going to attach on the blouse part over here, and then we're going to crochet the horn. I think I'm going to crochet ears, I haven't decided yet, and then we're going to attach fringes up here for the I don't know the English word, I don't want to use the word hair, to attach fringes from the front going all the way to the back up until the end of the hood. We're going to attach fringes. Okay, so let's see how to crochet the characteristics of the unicorn.